Hey everybody, KMO here, and those of you who watch all of my videos know why I'm smiling. But for those who don't, a little background. First off, I've been living alone for about 2.5 years now, maybe going on 3 years. And I am not, or until very recently, had not been in a relationship, was not looking for a relationship with a woman or a man. I was solo. Just me and the cat. And I wasn't really intending to change that. Not anytime soon. And I spoke with someone who goes by the internet name First. And he's with a group called Incelmatics. I'll put a link in the description below to my conversation with First. But one of the things that First and I talked about was what people in the incel community call geomaxing. Like looks maxing is where you try to look as good as possible, possibly with, just working out, possibly cosmetic surgery, or, all sorts of ways to make yourself look more masculine, to attract the ladies with your good, handsome looks. Looks maxing. Well, going to a place where local conditions and culture and the attitudes of women are just more conducive to normal guys doing well with the ladies, going to a country where you're going to do better with women is geomaxing. And First and I guess other incels are very intent on saying that's not the answer. That won't work. Well, if you read anything about guys going to the Philippines to find a mate, to find a wife or girlfriend, or just, sexual adventure, serial conquest, whatever, the opportunity is there. It may not last forever, but, the arguments that First marshaled against it, like there's going to be Boxer rebellions, people all over the world are going to decide they hate Americans and rise up and kill them, that just sounds like a dark fantasy to me. I've traveled extensively internationally, and it's been very valuable to me. So, all of that on the table. I recently put out a video saying, hey, you haven't seen me on YouTube for a while because I've been busy talking to Filipinas on FilipinoCupid.com, talking to many, many women over the course of a couple weeks, gradually narrowing it down to one. And so I've been talking with one woman, and you're probably going to see and hear her in the near future. Her name is Rose, and we talk on WhatsApp, by voice, about 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day. So I put out a video saying just that, and got a few responses, including this one from regular commenter Heyo Speaker. Heyo Speaker writes, "This development in KMO's life is weirdly analogous to how I spent the majority of my month of August. I had my first romantic relationship and learned a lot about relationships and myself in the process. It was a significant life event that changed my habits. I had never been in a relationship before, and I'm in my early 30s. Part of me has always wanted to, but I correctly sensed that I was very unprepared, and that I had some problematic quirks, not to mention a general lack of financial success and concentration/motivation/productivity issues. Not attractive or conducive to couplehood. I wasn't sure what I have to offer a partner other than being a generally nice guy. I didn't see how it could work, so I just focused half-heartedly on improving myself, while constantly getting distracted and sidetracked by many other things. I'm not always empathetic or sensitive in the moment, because my mind gets stuck on non-interpersonal objectives that distract me. I don't always give people the attention they deserve, or that I ideally could. Empathy or sympathy often occurs more after the fact for me, when I finally go back and analyze the situation I was in, how the other people probably were feeling, and how I responded. I don't lose my temper easily. I'm not violent at all, etc. I'm just a nice guy. I could be a lot better interpersonally. So I wasn't prepared to be in a couple in certain very important ways, but I sensed that, and I wasn't pursuing women because of it. Out of the blue, a woman who apparently had a childhood crush on me entered my life while visiting family and friends in the area. Totally unexpected for me, totally unsought for by me. But I seized the opportunity,
opened my mind, took a leap of faith, and hoped for the best. Tried to believe in magic. The alternative seemed too depressing and damaging, at least for me. I didn't want to hurt her, but I wanted to see if I had more in me than I realized I was capable of under novel circumstances that I had never previously experienced. And I did. I gave it my best shot. I found motivation and drive where there previously wasn't much. It just was too little too late. I was too unprepared, and she didn't fully understand where I was coming from, at least not until later on. The relationship only lasted, I think, about 3 weeks. It wasn't entirely my fault, but if I had been the person I want to be, it would have been much more likely to succeed. I wanted it to succeed, even though part of me was very apprehensive about certain things. In certain ways, we got along great, and there was a lot of potential, but in certain ways our weaknesses overlapped, and we weren't the best match. I was just hoping to help us both change, and I didn't want to give up. Anyway, that's all kind of irrelevant to my original reasons for writing this comment. The default subjects of my idle mind, politics, economics, psychology, and the general nature of our world, transformed into just thinking about her and things related to our relationship, constantly. I had never experienced that before in my life. I stopped watching YouTube, until we broke up, and then afterwards I had a much greater interest in videos about relationships and relationship psychology. I want to be ready for the next opportunity, and I have a lot of work to do. The experience was extremely educational and therapeutic for me in some ways, at least in shedding light on some of my own issues and the ways I was unprepared for being in a couple that I previously didn't fully understand. It revealed an interest in couplehood within myself that I didn't really know I had. It significantly changed my interests, motivations, and priorities. Unfortunately, it ended in disappointment. But given where we were both coming from, it was probably doomed before it began. I don't regret it, and I learned a lot, and hopefully it was at least educational in some ways for her as well. She told me it was. Anyway, seemingly like KMO, it completely changed what I spend time thinking about, majorly changed how I spent my time while the relationship was ongoing, and changed multiple important mental and life habits during and after. I really needed that experience. I just thought it was interesting that KMO and I both disappeared from YouTube at roughly the same time for similar reasons. I can relate to how a relationship completely changes one's priorities and habits, and that's not something I could have completely understood prior to my first relationship. Going on 3 weeks from the end of the relationship, I finally began to wonder why KMO hadn't been in my feed for a while. I thought maybe his recent Trump endorsement had lost him a lot of subscribers or something. The true reason turned out to be of particular interest to me. I guess I just wanted to share my experience. Does anybody here have any relationship advice they would like to share with someone like me, or just talk about your own issues? I'm very much hoping to be more psychologically prepared for the next opportunity on a deep level. Diet changes promoted by my ex, is that the correct term for someone you only dated for 3 weeks? Seem to be helping my mental function somewhat, and I've had some important insights into how my mind works after the fact, due to the light shed by the experiences I had. I still have a lot to figure out.
All right, first, thank you. Thank you to Heyo Speaker, for all of that, for watching these videos regularly, for being interested in the same topics that I'm interested in, and, for coming to the realization that a lot of the investment that we have in these topics comes from a lack of investment in something which is more fundamental and, for our own personal well-being, something more important, which is, that pair bond. So while you had a relationship that ran its whole course over the course of 3 weeks, I've been talking to Rose on WhatsApp for about 3 weeks, and just today, we came to the agreement that we are now boyfriend and girlfriend. So while we've been, spending 3 to 4 hours a day on the phone for 3 weeks, we're just now stepping over the threshold to where we can say, yes, there is a relationship. We are in a relationship. She is my girlfriend. I am her boyfriend. We've never laid eyes on each other. I mean, we've seen photos of each other. We've done video calls on WhatsApp, but, never in the flesh. And given the pandemic, given the restrictions on international travel, given the fact that I don't have a passport and won't for a while yet, it's likely to stay at this, LDR, long distance relationship stage for an uncomfortably long period of time. But I'm not in a hurry. And she has reasons to be in a hurry, but the pandemic trumps all. Speaking of Trump, I lost a few subscribers when I endorsed Trump. I don't endorse Trump. And in fact, I probably won't vote for him. I'm just so angry with the Democrats, and particularly with Biden and Harris. Oh, God. Anyway, this isn't that video. We're not talking about that. What are we talking about? We're talking about men and the dysfunctional social attitudes which have led to a lot of men. And, Heyo Speaker is in his 30s. To me, that is a young man. A lot of young men not only having impoverished love lives, but in Heyo Speaker's case, and I don't think this is terribly unusual, he's in his 30s and he's just having his first romantic relationship. I lost my virginity at 16. I was certainly not ready for a relationship, but I screwed up royally my first few in my teens and early 20s. And then, by the time I settled down and got married in my early 30s, I was just then in a position to really screw up, my first, it's not my first big relationship, but it was the marriage, and it was from that coupling that both of my children came. So screwed that up. Had another relationship after that, lasted about 5 years, and I won't say unequivocally that I screwed it up, but it's over. Has been for a few years now. And I was just taking a very long time out, which I think a lot of people are. But the difference is I'd had a body of relationships over the course of my teens, 20s, 30s, and into my 40s. But I've spent decades getting to where I am now. It's hard. It's hard, being in a relationship, communicating things which are difficult to communicate, being respectful of the other person and not, in spite of all your good intentions, not using them as a means to your ends. Even if your ends seem really, really worthwhile, really genuine, like, emotional satisfaction, love. You want the experience of love. Well, so does this other person. And yet two people who are attracted to one another, who like one another, who both want the same thing, which is the experience of being in love, eventually through a failure to communicate or a failure to respect the other's ends as much as you respect your own ends, resentments build up and eventually poisons it, eats away at the foundations of the relationship, and it totters and falls and breaks. And both parties, maybe just one party, walks away really hurt and possibly angry and possibly resentful and possibly storing up that, that desire to strike back for the next relationship. You get to pay the resentment forward, which, of course, this is a terrible idea, but I think a lot of people do it. Because I have cataloged, decades of relationship failures, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm in a position to give advice to anybody. I just want to say thank you very much to Heyo Speaker, and I would encourage people to answer the questions with which Heyo Speaker ended that communication. Do you have any advice for him? Do you have advice for me? Do you just want to share your own frustrations, heartaches, failures, learning experiences? And failures, in the abstract, we all realize that a failure can be a very valuable learning experience, and yet, who wants that? Who wants to fail? Who wants to take what seems like a very promising relationship and turn it into a hopefully useful former relationship, that shattered on the rocks of our inexperience and inability to communicate effectively? I have no advice other than... and this is not advice, this is just an advertisement. I do a daily live stream now, a daily drawing live stream on picarto.tv. The link will be in the description for this video, and Rose joins me on those live streams most mornings. You won't hear her voice, at least not yet, but she's in the chat, And you should be glad that she's there, because I have, when I'm drawing, I tend to look at the Cintiq. And the pop-out chat for the people who are in the live stream and talking to me is on a different screen, which I go long periods without looking at. So usually it is Rose who is pointing out that, there's a new unanswered question or comment in the chat. So be glad that she's there, and come on board, interact with the two of us daily, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. I guess that's GMT minus 5. We don't say GMT anymore, do we? That's a 20th century thing. Anyway, as you can see, there's a smile on my face. It's here most days now, thanks to her. And this is kind of out of left field for this video, but also I realized I've known about FilipinoCupid for many years. I've known for decades that I like Filipinas. I'd been on testosterone replacement therapy for about 2 months when I just kind of on a whim signed up for FilipinoCupid. And I'm going to do a video about my month on FilipinoCupid, which really was like 2 weeks on FilipinoCupid. Because what you want to do is get off of FilipinoCupid pretty quick. You can't drop photos and links and stuff into the chat in FilipinoCupid. There's no video chat functionality there, and it's pretty important. And I'm getting ahead of myself a bit, because there's going to be a whole video, maybe series of videos on my experience on FilipinoCupid. But it's pretty important to get over to a video conferencing or video call interface quickly, so that you can see that the person whose still photo you've seen is in fact the same person who is writing to you and speaking to you and possibly building a relationship with you. So, WhatsApp. I'd never used it before a month ago, and now it is the most used app on my phone. All right. Join me for the live streams. Tune in for the C-Realm podcast whenever I get them out. And, stay subscribed here. You'll hear from me again. And you're also going to hear from Rose, and I think you're going to agree I made a good choice. All right. Talk to you soon.